Yeah. But bring it with you. It's always in the vehicle.
I need to step out and change it. I need to step out and change personalities.
That's nice. You can't take that.
Time is 4:30 p.m. The Pelican Rapids City Council meeting of 12 October 2021 is called to order. I'd ask if those in the audience, if you have not signed in on the clipboard by the front back door, if you please do so before you leave this evening. And if you have cell phones, please put them on vibration. Roll call of members. Danielle?
Councilmember Steve Strand.
Here.
Councilmember Kevin Ballard.
Here.
Councilmember Kurt Murdoch.
Here.
Councilmember Steve Foster.
Here.
And Mayor Brett Frazier.
Here. I want to welcome each and every one of you here to our October 12th City Council meeting in our chambers, also those that are joining us this evening on Zoom. And remember that our council meetings are seen on Channel 14 on Wednesday evenings. I just have one announcement, well actually two. Tonight during our council meeting at approximately 5 p.m. we'll have a public hearing. And also our next city council meeting is 26th of October at 4:30 p.m. here in the city council chambers. Are there any other announcements? Any other announcements? Hearing none, if you'll all please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Citizens' comments. Anyone here in the audience for citizens' comments?
I'd like to make a couple. Judy Tabbitt, community member and also member of the Local Foods, Local Places. I just want to encourage the city to keep moving forward on all the wonderful projects you've got going. And I know that there's some controversy on a few of them, like the highway, but remember, we're going to get some sidewalk way out to the apartments and some infrastructure. I want to encourage you to keep supporting the swimming pool. There are so many people that have worked so hard to raise funds for the swimming pool. Third one, senior citizens. Kevin, we talked, that's a really underused building, and we have to keep moving forward with Local Foods, Local Places to try and get that situated so we can have a commercial kitchen in there, okay? And then I want to encourage you to really seriously think about an economic development person. If you have the right person in that position, they will more than earn their money. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Anyone else? Citizens' comments? Anyone else? Seeing none, item number 3, agenda additions or deletions, I have one item to add. Item number 17 would be Representative Jordan Rasmussen. Here this evening. Item number 17, Representative Jordan Rasmussen. Any other additions or deletions?
Move the agenda with the addition.
Second. Motion second. Discussion? 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 Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Item number 4 is approval of consent agenda, which I'll read. Item number 4A is approval of minutes of the council meeting of September 28, 2021, and there was an updated page, one page under Jeff's this evening. Item number 4B is approval of accounts payable listing. 4C1 is police chief report, which is in your packet, and 4C2 financial report, which is in your packet. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion second, discussion? 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 Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Let's jump all the way down to item number 17. Like I mentioned before, we have State Representative Jordan Rasmussen with us this evening. I know one of the big things he's going to talk about is the state bonding committee tour, which he was a part of. Okay?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members, for having me today. I wanted to talk about 2 items. First off, on the bonding tour, just really wanted to thank the city and the community for welcoming the House Capital Investment Committee to town for what I believe it was a historic stop. I don't know if a bonding committee has ever stopped here in Pelican Rapids, and I would say the community just did a wonderful job leaving an impression on committee members. I'm a member of the Capital Investment Committee, so I get to go on a lot of these trips and make a lot of these stops, and the members of the committee, I think, were really impressed by the community's commitment, the local fundraising, and just getting a chance to talk with community volunteers, students there at the site, I think was really impactful. They also enjoyed the opportunity to see the pedestrian bridge as well. And so I think overall the city made a really positive impression on the Capital Investment Committee. And so I want to thank all the hard work that went into organizing that and hosting us on our tour. The one thing I would just highlight is just uncertainty with the bonding bill. This next session is going to be a bonding year, so we are supposed to produce a bonding bill, but as history has guided us, sometimes we don't get a bonding bill. Sometimes it's smaller, sometimes it's larger. Projects can be in, they can be out, and so I'm happy to keep the council, the city, updated as that process continues. But I just wanted to highlight that uncertainty that goes along with bonding. The other item I wanted to bring to the council's attention is that I believe that there's an additional funding source that the city could potentially pursue for the pool project in particular. There was about $24 million set aside in the tax bill that was passed this last session of equity funding that will be administered by deed. I've shared some preliminary information on that with the city administrator, but we're still waiting for deed to come out with the formal application process. And so once that is finalized, I'll be sure to send that along to the city with any guidance or input on that process as well. That's all I have on the bonding tour. The other item I wanted to discuss, Mr. Mayor, was the MnDOT Complete Streets project. I received the petition that the council had discussed and voted on and forwarded that to MnDOT District 4 leadership for their review and feedback. I received a letter back from them, kind of a formal response that I also sent on to the city. The kind of 2 positive movements that we saw in there was, one, the lessened parking impact for the downtown area with their new design, and then also the commitment to focus on completing the construction in the downtown business district as soon as possible. And from my conversations with the District 4 leadership, they're confident that they can get that done in a very timely manner. I know that there's still ongoing conversations between the city and MnDOT, and so I'm happy to be helpful as a part of those conversations moving forward. So please let me know how I can be helpful as you guys continue on that journey. I would say, my underlying goal, is to avoid a situation where essentially MnDOT would decide to go it alone without municipal consent and end up with a project that is suboptimal, for the city, for the residents of Pelican Rapids. So look forward to working with council members and MnDOT on putting together a good plan that works for the residents and the city. With that, happy to take any questions, Mr. Mayor, but those are two updates I wanted to bring to the council this evening.
Any questions, council?
Jordan,
Mr. Strand.
Can you share how many stops you made? You told me now.
Yeah, so in our first tour, which we did of northwestern Minnesota, so that's where we did the stops in Fergus Falls and Pelican Rapids, we made 18 stops, reviewed about 80 projects, and we have 5 weeks of tours. And so, we will be looking at a lot of projects, billions of dollars of potential bonding projects as a part of our tours.
Like 100 stops.
Yes, yeah, could easily be, more than 100 stops. And yeah, we received more than 1,000 submissions in terms of bonding proposals through the MMB process. And that reminds me, Councilmember Strand, the other project that isn't directly through the city of Pelican Rapids, but I think has an impact on Pelican Rapids, is another bonding project, which would be for completing the Pelican Rapids to Perham Trail. As you are probably aware, the funding for all those segments has been secured, except for the 7.5 miles within Maplewood State Park. And so that's another bonding proposal that the DNR supports, that the Otter Tail County supports, that would complete it. But that segment is entirely within Maplewood State Park. And so we're working with DNR on trying to get funding for that in the bonding bill as well.
What's your procedure for coming to a consensus of what projects get funded?
That's a great question. I would say, there's a lot of different criteria that get applied to it, and so it's difficult to kind of have there is no formal scoring process. But I would say, oftentimes the time sensitivity, the importance that people see for the community or for the region, level of community engagement on it, local match. And then sometimes it just comes down to the overall dollar amount. We have some bonding requests that are $50 million. And so if you do one bonding request for $50 million versus, some smaller ones, that's something that's weighed as well. But there'll be different versions of bonding bills that'll come out throughout this year as a part of the final negotiations.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for joining us this evening and for the updates you have for us. Please keep us in touch.
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members.
Item number 5 is street and park report. We have Brian Olson, who also will go with us for the resolution. The resolution reads number 2021-14. It should be 15. It should be changed to 15.
Is that the resolution number now? 15? Okay. Again, pretty basic. We did complete our annual jetting in September, a little bit into October with no issues this year. That was good. Some of the manholes we've been into before have roots. This year they didn't, just because we've found them and tried to take care of them a little more. Hydrant flushing was postponed last Sunday, so it will be this Sunday, the 17th, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. So we will start at 7, and we'll be completed by 3. So yes, there will. What's that?
Rain or shine.
This time it's got to be rain or shine. Yep, looks nice, but yep. Working on continuously sweeping leaves right now. It seems like it is the time of year, and I look at the trees and they still have a lot on, but try to keep ahead of them, keep the storm drains open, especially now they're talking rain tomorrow, so it is important. Of course, October we start getting our winter equipment ready, so plows everything gets to be put on for, in preparation for snow. The resolution that we'll pass here, we have plenty of sand, salt mixture, but the resolution is one we do every year, just in case something happens. The parks they are pretty much all winterized now. They're closed. We do have maybe 1 or 2 more campers that'll be in the campground, but they're aware that the water is shut off. So, and so they usually bring their own generators and are self-sufficient. But otherwise, the only other thing I'd like to do, you gave me permission last spring to hire Ryan Hughesby for a seasonal position through October. I would like to ask the council to extend that at least through the end of this year, just with the uncertainty in our department. So if I could get that approval, that would be good.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried.
Perfect, thank you. If you want to pass that resolution.
Do you want to address that?
Yeah, we can do that. It is the same resolution we pass through Otter Tail County each and every year to purchase sand salt from them if we run out. I don't recall a year that we've ran out, but you never know when it's going to happen. So it's just basically protecting so we make sure we always have some for our streets is the resolution.
Make a motion to pass resolution 2021-15 with the maintenance agreement.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same, motion carried.
Any questions or anything? Okay, thank you.
Item number 6 is Planning Commission recommendation, which was in your packet. I know this evening we have Planning Commission President John Waller III here, and also we have Jill Office in the audience that can answer any questions that we may have. So I'll turn it over to you, John.
Well, what we're working on is that parcel of land that we own on west on 108. What we want to do is try and get that developed in some fashion. So what we worked with West Central Initiatives and Jill there, because they had a grant program so they could guide us through this process, because none of us had the expertise to be able to do this. So the first phase, we want to do this in 3 phases. So in the packet you had a map, and we had set it up into 3 phases. The first phase is the 2 R2 sections that we plan to do, because we plan on those 2, and we put them as R2, and R2 is multi-use, where we could have apartment buildings, you can have condos, you can have single-family homes, or commercial. We planned those because right next to each one of those parcels of land, those sections, are the apartment buildings. And in those because the apartment buildings are there, the sewer and water can be run right to those 2 sections. And basically in this plan, we're just setting up the different zones that we feel we want to have in these areas. At any time, they can be changed if somebody comes along and says, well, I'm a developer, and in this area, I'd like to have this. And if it doesn't fit the zone we have, we can look at it and decide to change it. So we're just making the zone changes to this so that we can move on and get this into the comprehensive plan that we're working on. And then phase 2 is just next to the top, the 2 apartment buildings that are up there at the top of the map, and then we're designed that as R1 so we could have single family homes in that area. And then next to that, and right above the first section we did, we want that to be R1 as well. That would be our 3rd section. because we want more single-family homes in that area. And then the first, right along the highway, Highway 108, in our first preliminary plan, we're hoping to have some sort of commercial that would benefit like the area there, like a convenience store or maybe a small grocery store or something, so that the residents that live over there would have a spot to run to if they needed something. So what we plan to do is have you approve this so that we can pass this on to our comprehensive plan and get that in there, so that if Jill is able to find us like some sort of bonding or funding or something, then we can have it in our plan and say, here, we have a written document that says this is what we plan to do. So without those kind of documents, you generally don't get any funds to help you with anything. Any questions?
Comprehensive plan, that is, the end date of that is the
Soon.
year, December,
Gee.
November, November?
Yeah, so about another month or so. So
Council have any questions for John?
this document is all ready to go if you approve it, so that we can get it to the comp plan to add it in there.
For Jill, did you have any comments?
Not unless there are questions.
Okay.
And as far as like streets and things like that, we kind of want to leave that up to the developers and the city to kind of work that out when we have a developer that wants to put something in each one of these sections. Any questions? Okay. Thanks.
John, did you have anything to say on this?
No, you explained it pretty well. I guess it's a start, you know, to try and see if we can get something happening up in the northwest, you know. I think obviously the biggest thing is with council approving the recommendation, then we just pass it on to the advisory committee for the comp plan update, and just kind of get that worked in, because ultimately, in these areas that they suggest as zoning, it's going to require rezoning, and that would be the perfect time to do that is during the comprehensive plan update, because we'll be having public meetings on that type of thing too, and we can actually get, when we hold the public hearings, that would cover the rezoning that would have to happen up there as part of that process, so.
I'll move we adopt planning commission recommendation. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Discussion? Discussion?
A little bit of discussion. I think the last thing that really needs up there is another apartment building. So let's just stop an apartment building from being built in that forward spot with this plan. Well,
If it's zoned,
if it's zoned,
if it's zoned R2, really nothing to stop it.
Well, I think what would potentially stop it, if a developer that wants to do an apartment building up there is interested in doing that, they're gonna do what the other two did, I would guess, I would hope, and they would do a market study or a feasibility study, and if they saw that we just did not have the demand for more apartment space, they wouldn't put one there. But other than that, the zoning's correct for apartments.
But if we didn't have it,
There'd be other factors that would stop them from doing it, their own factors. Financial factors. accept that.
But see, if we don't zone it R2, then we can't get like condos in there or multi-use dwellings and things like that. And we can always deny an apartment building, but I don't foresee one coming in, because if there was one coming in, the guy who built the first 2 apartment buildings would have gone and built this 3rd one. Because he had wanted to all along. But being they built the other one, he decided. So I would think that that would be a long shot to have an apartment building.
No other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you.
Mayor, one more item under that, under planning commission.
Yes.
We did have a planning commission commissioner that resigned, and so we would like to fill that position. And we had gotten an application. We took applications not too long ago. We had gotten a couple, but you guys had already approved the open spot. Well, Harold Holt had filled out an application also, and we touched base with him. We kind of told him we'll have to wait and see if something opens up. Well, now we have an opening, so we'd like to recommend that the council appoint Harold Holt to the planning commission.
For how long of time?
Well, I think originally what we'll look at doing is him filling the vacated spot. That would be the beginning of it, and then if he wants to continue at the end of that term, he would continue on his own terms.
Do you know how much is left on
I don't.
that term? Okay.
I move we approve Harold Holt for the planning commission.
No, second that.
Motion second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, John. Can we move to the public meeting now, Don? I know it was advertised at 5 or about.
Yeah, you should be able to.
I know we have county representatives here.
And just refuse to.
Oh, is it go ahead, Don?
Sure.
Okay, so at this time, we'll recess our city council meeting. We'll go into the annexation public hearing, which was advertised at 5 o'clock or about. During this public meeting, we remember that there are no votes taken. We'll do that after we reconvene into our city council meeting. So the time is 4:56 p.m. We will begin our annexation public hearing. Don?
Correct. So the council had called this public hearing as a result of a request or a petition provided to the council by the county. And you see up on the screen here a map of the location that we're talking about, and this is just west of the industrial park. And so they're going to use this. This is where they're going to put the new county garage. And ultimately, I think what we're part of this project also entails extending the water and sewer from the industrial park out to this area. That's kind of where we're at as part of the process. They need to have the public hearing, and then after you have the public hearing, it would be a matter of the council approving the ordinance for the annexation this evening, and then from there, I submit this paperwork, map and the ordinance and other paperwork to the state Office of Administrative Hearing, and they send us back something that basically approves the annexation. I think they take a look at the statutes to make sure it fits. The reason for us doing annexation by ordinance as opposed to orderly annexation, and if everything lines up with the state statute that allows us to do this, then they would send us approval on the annexation, and then it would become part of the city.
This evening, we also have County Commissioner Wayne Johnson with us. Commissioner Johnson, any comments from you?
I'll wait until the public hearing is actually open, Mr. Mayor, if that's all right. And if it is, that's fine.
Say again?
I'll wait until you open the public hearing for comment.
Okay.
That's all I have. Where does the city, or the current, does the water and sewer stuff, or does it? Basically, the water and sewer utilities right now run along industrial
They die right there,
boulevard.
right there. Is where they're, that's where they're dead end, right there.
So it'd be a matter of extending it over a short distance to get to that product.
Any questions from the council? Any questions? If not, well, then we'll open it up to comments from the public. Any comments from the public?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity. For the record, I'm Wayne Johnson, Otter Tail County Commissioner for the area. My comments about the annexation is primarily it doesn't serve much tax capacity function for the city. However, if we can get this annexed in, then we can access city water and sewer, which is critical to the building of this facility. And so with that, excuse me, I'm sorry, we have approved contracts and bonds for the construction, the demolition and everything, and the site prep and the building of the county garage. I believe in those there's the option for connecting to city water and sewer, so that is part of the construction package that was bid. And so there is no cost to the city for this. And we are, just as an informational piece for everyone, we are consolidating 3 garages. The existing Pelican Rapids garage that was built in 1960, the Earhart garage that was built in 1954, and actually the Vergas garage. The Vergas garage was actually tentatively transferred to the city of Vergas because they have a redevelopment project going on with Goodman Super Value. It fits in with everything they're doing there. So we already have an agreement for the city of Vergas to purchase that property, and they're going to roll it into parking, additional space for possibly their liquor store and those kinds of things. So we're well on the way. We actually have a construction deadline on this garage of November of 2022. So basically 13 months from today is pretty close to the completion of the project. And so this will fit in nicely. It will bring and consolidate county employees into the area. We will also look at other facilities that are government functions being used. I know that County Garage 1 has some things for the SWCDs and those kinds of things. Also looking at considering that the recycling that is currently down at Larry's Supermarket as far as drop-off, potentially being moved up here also to put that into a county function process, to alleviate the area that we're using down there that Larry's currently owns, and actually put that on county property. So I speak for the annexation, obviously. We look forward to being partners. We, the county, look forward to being partners with the city on this process, and would stand for any questions, or I can come back up if anyone comes with any questions.
Any questions for the commissioner?
We're gonna have to put a roundabout up there with
I am not the highway engineer, Mr. Strand. The proposal is that eventually there'll be recycling. The proposal also is that I believe that the road from County Road 9
to the access here will be paved. And I don't remember, Councilman Strand, if in the bid documents that's in there or not. I didn't see that.
But you're paying from the green arrow to the garage.
Correct. And I presume in the road ditch, because there's an easement there or whatever, Brian, but.
Yeah, well, I guess we haven't really looked at it that close
Yeah.
yet, but
The property has been surveyed, there's stakes out there and things like that, so.
Any questions for you, Brian?
no, it's about time they found a piece of property.
Yeah, we've, to address Brian's comment, we've been looking for 3.5 years, trying to consolidate garage area and finally, we're able to settle with the estate of the Thompsons, for this particular piece of property, so.
Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, you know, they say that government, like, you know, moves slowly sometimes, and so this one's a testament to that, so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council.
Any other questions from the public? Any other questions from the public? Any other questions from the council? Before we close the public hearing and go into our council meeting. Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll close the annexation public hearing and we'll reconvene our city council meeting. So before us, we have ordinance number 21-02. And Don, did you have any comments on this?
No, I don't. Just recommend the council approve the mayor signing off on the ordinance.
Is there a motion?
I'll move we adopt ordinance number 2102.
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
So does that street get renamed? I mean, does it become the city street, or how does that work?
I'm not sure how that's gonna work yet.
Yeah, we'll figure that one out. I think for now, it'll obviously stay the same.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Hold the same. Motion carried. Thank you, Commissioner. Let's jump down to item number 9, library report is in your packet. We have a representative from the library board here this evening to answer any questions we may have. I'll just pass it on. We have Councilman Markraft.
I appreciate this. We have a Rotary social at our home tonight, so, and it was starting at 5 o'clock, so thank you, Mayor.
Any questions for Mr. Gottenworth? I had one.
Yes.
In the minutes from September 1st, item number 6. Well, could you explain that? It said the motion did not pass regarding the payment for the room.
I made a motion to deny the request. It was seconded by Sue, but in the end, it didn't have the support of the board. We decided instead to table our the request for payment pending your council meeting. So at our last meeting, now we did receive it's in the packet, we did receive a completed punch list, and we felt good about that. And so there was now a motion to approve that pay request recommended by the architect. But at our earlier meeting, we did not have this information. It was just, we had no record of what was on that punch list.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the past, didn't those pay requests come to the city council before they came to the library board?
I'm not aware of that. That may have been the issue around that conversation, that we didn't feel like we wanted to make that decision until we saw the punch list. And I know we had a council meeting coming up shortly after that.
Well, the reason I say that is the city funds the exterior of the building and the properties, and this is definitely on the exterior. So my question is, why did the library board vote on this before we saw it?
I believe historically, even though decisions were made in regard to roofing and other things dealing with the exterior, that the library board at some point has made a motion, whether it was just to simply agree with the library board or agree with the city council or not. But this is what I'm thinking happened on that. I can't remember the exact conversation. It may have been exactly what you were talking about.
Any questions from the council?
Has the punch list been fully completed, or are there items left hanging out there that are not done yet?
Did you receive this from Design Intent?
Yeah.
The only thing that is left work, A&R Roofing will be in November to inspect the duct insulation to verify if any mold has developed. If so, they will remove and replace all affected areas. And the library server rack, that check was sent to the city of Pelican Rapids instead of being paid to Viking Library System. So other than the inspection, the punch list is now complete.
Okay.
And just to elaborate on the server rack that is in the utility room that got wet, it's not Pelican rack, it's library equipment. It's library systems equipment.
Yep.
And that check should have gone to Viking Library System in Fergus Falls. Okay, so there's rather than the library here or the city which was paid.
So what happened to that check?
It was mailed to us, but it was made out to Viking Library System. So we contacted A&R Roofing and told them they'd have to reissue a new check and send it to Viking Library System. If we couldn't cash it, we sent it back.
And then you know it, has Viking Library System gotten that check?
I think that just happened like the end of last week. I mean, it just is very recent, so I would be surprised if they actually did get it yet.
The check initially went into the mail on 10/4, and it did arrive at the city. So they have been working specifically with the injured parties. For example, at our meeting last Wednesday, they had just they were getting ready for the pour in front of the barber shop. So we have not. I have no idea whether or not that's gone through, but that property was Viking Library, and I suspect they've been paid.
Any other questions? If not, do I hear a motion to approve the library report? Motion second, discussion.
I have one item that may be of interest.
Is this pertaining to your motion?
Oh, pardon. Yeah, go ahead.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Dunn.
We did get a receipt. We did have we had an outgoing expense to Mr. Plummer for for some sewer work that we needed done, and in the very end, the reason why we're having some problems is that there was no connection made for that particular sewer outlet when West Mill was resurfaced. Are you aware of that?
Yep.
Right. So we had expenses at the library of $595, and a motion was made to pass that on to the city council, or the city, because we didn't feel it was our responsibility, since in fact there is no sewer connection to West Mill. So I don't know where that happened, but so part of that building, a couple of the bathrooms, or not the bathroom, the floor drain and the softener. So they aren't used that much, but when they did cause a backup, and we brought the camera in, inadvertently that was never connected to the sewer system.
So has it been connected now?
Well, no, we just found this out.
Yeah, so it's-
So the 5 are,
I don't know how you're gonna, I don't know what you'd want to do if you'd want to.
so this expense is for the camera work.
Yeah, he came in, I think, on 2 different occasions, but he had to come back the second time because there was no roots or, any kind of, any plugging. And when he brought the camera back, he found there was no connection.
Yes, first of all, I ran that PO for $595 under the building that it was supposed to go to. That's why it went there. Instead of putting it under City Hall or any other building, it went to the library, because that's the building that it costs money. I am working right now with, Bob and I have been in communication from Apex, and also with AE Construction. I'm trying to figure out the easiest way to hook that up without going back out in the street. So at the time that this is going on, they were in and out, dyeing all these sewer laterals, and were told by somebody at the library that they only had one, the other one had been abandoned. So that's where we come today. And so we're going back and trying to figure out, now we have to connect this, hopefully to the new one that they did install. This one only takes the old section of that building, which literally now is the mechanical room, nothing else. The bathrooms, everything else go out the new way. So if there's enough elevation, we may end up losing a tree or two to get it over there, but I'd rather lose a tree or two than dig up the new street to get that sewer main over that lateral. So.
Okay. Any comments, questions?
I got kind of a question comment. So this is dealing with the building. I'm kind of not sure why, if it's the building in the city, obviously it's going to be a city expense. Why is the library even having to deal with it? Why isn't just the street department dealing with it as a city facility?
I think what happened is that just like in any of our residences, when we have a backup, Annie called because this, there was a backup into the drain system. So not guessing that, Mr. Plummer came over, Hanson, and proceeded to kind of rotor-root that and found no damage. And then from that point came back the next day with a camera. So that's how it, that's.
Why the first call wasn't to Brian?
Yeah,
As opposed to.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I would have never known had the plumber not called me, actually.
Yeah.
Right, that's my point. It's a city's building.
Right.
The first call that should have been made would be to Brian, and there's no doubt, it's our bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pay the plumber, but.
Yeah, I just put it under the right building, so.
We don't have to approve that in phase.
Is it on the building thing, or what is it?
What I'm understanding is Brian processed the bill and billed it to the library. When we got the bill, we sent it on to the library, not knowing it should be a city bill. So no, it's not on the city bill listing.
So the library is paying it, or what?
The library paid it.
So we'll just reimburse the library?
Yeah.
But I think, just to get back to that, why the city wasn't notified initially, the problem wasn't the drain. The problem was the water softener. it was inoperable.
Oh, yeah.
That's how we ended up having a plumber there. And
That's right.
One thing just led to another. And he started to try to understand why, you know, when he had to regenerate the softener or whatever it is he does.
Right.
And the water didn't go anywhere, they just continued.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, anything else, David?
No.
Okay, well, thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you for taking it. Yeah.
We'll move back up. Item number 7 is Ringgold Ambulance Service, and we have Tullis Ringgold with us here this evening.
Thank you for having us here. It's been a while since we've been here. I think in fact, it's probably about 15 years since I've met with the council, which is, I think, maybe a little bit too long. But I know we've been busy, and with COVID and whatnot, it's definitely put a struggle in meetings and such. At any rate, so the ambulance service here is, it's here. We are continuing to offer full-time ALS ambulance service for the city. And I believe we've been here now for 16 years, and prior to that was Barb Mock. A lot of the same things that she had in place then is still in place now. I think our run volume has gone up. For the record here, Pat Wallace here, he's the operations director, is here as well, and maybe we'll tap into some of his numbers and such. But what he had provided here is that we've been pretty steady around the 700 call volume per year range for the last few years anyways. Currently for the year we're at 605. Oh, 606, we had one earlier. I guess I'm here basically, my understanding is just to ask answer any questions that the council or any of the public might have on us or operations or what have you. But I can tell you now that we're still, ambulance services in the country they haven't received a Medicare increase for about, it's going on maybe 18 years now. So if you look at all the expenditures of, well, you name it, anything, vehicles, paper, you just name it, it's all gone up in cost. Whereas ambulance service, our main revenue source is Medicare. They have not given ambulance services in the country a significant increase in help me out, I'm stumbling with words, a significant increase in the payment of services to ambulance services. So obviously we're short of money. I'm not here asking for money from the council or the city, but I understand we have a pretty good relation in that regard, unless I'm wrong. No? At any rate, so financially we're not where we want to be. Our biggest problem, along with the financial situation, is that we can't afford the paramedics and EMTs now because they expecting more money, and I feel bad for them because I can tell you that my staff, they're overworked and underpaid, and I sincerely say that as a business owner. I can tell you that my staff, they don't get enough money, and that's really unfortunate. In order for them to make things meet, it's not uncommon that our staff is putting in 100, maybe 120 hours of overtime per pay period, which is 2 weeks. So obviously that costs us quite a bit more money as far as insurance, workman's comp, of course benefits and such, along with the labor cost. And I guess that's all I have to say right now as far as where we're sitting right now. I mean, I can't stress enough how important it is that we're understaffed, and it's not just a regional problem. It's a nationwide problem that I think that something needs to happen. Sincerely, I believe they need an increase in pay. They work in the same capacity, or paramedics do work in the same capacity as a nurse in the hospital or an emergency department, and we know that they get paid well for the most part, and they're doing just as much work and maybe a little bit more stressful as well. Well, in addition to the job being stressful, the staff they're working so much that they're away from home. They're the family time is limited, and they spend quite literally the majority of their life at the ambulance station waiting for calls. And so that's that. Is there anything else you'd like me to answer? Or?
Well, I guess the main reason we asked you to be present this evening, we have been hearing from the community about the slower response time to call. We were just wondering what's the reason, what's happening?
That is directly related to our staffing issues. I mean, ideally, I'd love to have 5 ambulances covering the west side of Otter Tail County, but a lot of times we're, sorry, kids. Primarily, initially I want to have at least 5 ambulances covering the west side of Otter Tail County, but right now we're struggling to have 3 crews on 24 hours a day, and sometimes it's lower than that. We're using the toys that we have, whether they're broken or good. We have what we have, and we have to utilize it what we can. Yes, we've had plenty of employment or recruiting drives, and I think that the grass is greener on the other side. Really, I think that they see the pay from these large hospital organizations, whether it be North or Essentia or what have you, and they're getting a lot more money than what we can afford here. Now, just because my staff doesn't get paid as much as the other paramedics and EMTs in other regions, that doesn't mean that our care is any better or worse. Well, I think it's better, actually. I think that we have a very compassionate and competent crew members. They know what to do, and I mean, they're working all the time, and you got to be good at it, right? No, I thought that was going to be a little joke.
That I've never heard a complaint on the level of care provided by the
Yeah.
Not a one, ever. The only complaint that I've had, or concern, not even a complaint,
Right.
a concern on several occasions, because there are people in this city that will watch this meeting on TV, and they're aware of the service agreement that we have with you.
Yeah.
And some of them have taken notice and approached me personally on when both ambulances are out of town, which happens frequently.
Mm-hmm.
There should be one moved up here. Now, if you're short, you're short. And I've asked them to pay attention more as that happened. And most of the time, Earhart used to be the standard where there would be a response rate when we're out in town in Earhart. that's since slid to Elizabeth. Now, that would be a huge indicator of a slower response time to get here from Earhart than Elizabeth. So, is that directly related to the staffing? Is that ambulance's staff? Or is that ambulance covering Fergus Falls and Pelican Rapids as the points, you know?
Yeah, so we're fully aware that the contract is here, and we want to make sure that we cover as much ground as we can, including the Pelican area. The reason why we have a unit stage in Elizabeth when we're short is because it has greater response out west towards Battle Lake if we have to go that way. Now, because we're there doesn't mean we're going to answer all the calls. If there's calls in Vergus, you can't get there real fast from there. So we've utilized mutual aid in those cases, whether it be Detroit Lakes or Perm. And a lot of times, or not a lot, but in some cases we've utilized mutual aid from the east, like Henning. So, yeah, it's a staffing issue is why we're there. And I don't like it. I don't want to be there. But again, that's what we have to play with. I think right now we could, where's Pat? How many paramedics do you think we could hire right now? Full-time?
12.
It's
We're about half staffed as far as our full-time positions.
Yeah, that's significant. And it's not a local, it's not a problem here, it's a problem everywhere. I responded to a gentleman who inquired via email, and I told him that we have the opportunity to see how ambulance services are run throughout the country, primarily the East Coast, southern states, and California. And it's not uncommon to have ambulances stacked up at the hospital waiting to drop off their patient. So it's not just an EMS issue, it's a problem that you have at the hospitals as well. There's not enough nurses to handle the influx of incoming patients. The longest time I've had to wait at a hospital, not here in this region, but working elsewhere, was 3 hours, and other crews working my shift were waiting up to upwards of 7 hours. So if the ambulances are tied up at hospitals, we can't respond to calls because we don't have that transfer of care to a equal or higher level of care. In addition to that, this shortage elsewhere is significant enough to where there's ambulances that are patients that are waiting hours for ambulances. So, waiting 12 minutes for response, comparing the rest of the country is pretty good. I'm not saying it's real fast, but I'm just kind of giving you an oversight as to what it's like elsewhere, and I really don't want this to happen here.
I was just first of all, I think it's very interesting how you kind of explain the situation that you're kind of put in because of the hospital shortages. Because a lot of times we probably don't think of it in terms of the supply chain, and you guys, you come pick people up and you go and you deliver them and you drop them off at the door and go. So it's nice to hear that. But I'm just kind of curious, 50% staffing is significant. How long have you been at that level?
2 years, at least.
Yeah, it kind of varies. We have seasonal people that we put on full-time for a length of time, and maybe they're going back to school or something like that, but yeah, we've had staffing issues for probably a couple of years in general.
And it's not just because of the wage or pay. They're quite literally getting burnt out. It's a stressful environment. Some people just can't handle it. I guess I really don't know how to stress that more, unless you can think of anything else.
Well, and we don't want to be staffed that way, right?
No.
Obviously, but the pool is pretty small for those people. You guys all watch the news, Detroit Lakes ambulance. They're probably, I'm guessing, half staff or lower right now because a bunch of people walked. There's people walking from services because of mandates and all kinds of things going on. But there's kind of a big picture. One thing that I wanted to mention, I guess, is our response time can be slower depending on how busy we are too. For instance, in the last about hour and 5 minutes, we've had 2 calls up here in Pelican. So and those people have to be transported right out of town. So if we don't have a hospital in Pelican anymore, right? So we've got to go someplace with them an hour away. So the busier we get, the harder it is for us to backfill, even if we're fully staffed. So.
Mayor, and the reason I asked the question is because I kind of wanted to know, is this a COVID effect? And you said 2 years, so basically you were kind of this way before a COVID effect even came about, so. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a question. Does Ringgold have a contract with different hospitals or?
We have no contracts. The only contract we have is with the city of Pelican and a few townships.
But you do transfer patients from one hospital to another?
Mm-hmm.
So by doing that, you're cutting out some of our services here?
I suppose you could, I mean, there's different ways to skin the chicken, right? I mean, or it's a double-edged sword, however you want to say it. Transfers are bread and butter for EMS, and without those transfers, how am I supposed to get a pay increase to my staff? And yes, we do transfers from other areas, Detroit Lakes. We've done some out of Fargo, Breckenridge, of course, Lake Region. We try to cater to Lake Region as much as we can because. We got to kind of work together. In fact, I just saw my primary care provider yesterday, and he says, how you guys doing? I'm like, he's like, yeah, man, we're treading water. They're looking for providers. They're looking for nursing. They're looking for, everybody. I think everybody's looking for staff. That's another thing. Anyways, as far as Lake Region goes, we have to hold their hand in a sense because, if they're inundated with patients, we have to free up patients to get their nurses to tend to other patients. And who's the one to transport those citizens out of that community into a different area for either higher level of care in Fargo or what have you. And it's not just Fargo. Fargo's full. So we've been seeing increase of transfers to St. Cloud, the Minneapolis metro area. Mankato, I think we did one to Mankato.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
County Commissioner Wayne Johnson again, tell us if you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Nice to meet you. So this issue has also come up county-wide. I just want to chime in, kind of.
Yeah.
Because we have a number of first responders that are volunteer across Otter Tail County. There's one down in the southern part of the county that they respond, so 7 volunteers, and they've responded to over 300 calls. Well, that's one a day, and there too, they're getting burned out. And I guess, I don't know if you've heard from us yet, but you're going to hear from us. Patrick, well, let's go possibly Otherwise, Lynn, our new deputy administrator, one of her positions is to reach out. And the reason we're reaching out is okay, here's the problem, what's the solution? Because I believe in finding solutions, okay? We all have this problem because Otter Tail County is a great place to come and work and live and play and do all those kinds of things. But if we can't care for the people who have an accident, who do all those kinds of things, then we're not serving the people we're trying to make our citizens and to become citizens. And so I want the city council to know, I want Ringdahl to know that this isn't just Pelican Rapids' issue. This is county-wide, if not state and federal wide. And so anything we can do, anything Tolof can bring, anything anyone can bring and say, hey, is this a solution? I know Representative Rasmussen left, he had another meeting, but there was a bill at the state legislature regarding funding for rural ambulance services, I believe, Tolof, is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, there's a handful of things going on.
It didn't pass, or at least it didn't pass this session.
Most of them don't.
Right, you know, well, and again, we're fighting that, I'll get on my political soapbox, we're fighting that metro-rural divide a little bit, right?
I agree.
We can't get support from some of the metro people to say, you need extra funding out there because instead of driving 3 minutes to a call, we have to drive 17 minutes to a call. Well, that's a little slower response time no matter how you look at it, you know. So I just want to throw in there with this conversation, I appreciate the opportunity that we need to find some solutions to this, all right? We need to figure out what it is, and typically, and I hate to say it this way, typically solutions mean money, right? I mean, Mr. Ringdahl said, we're not able to pay like other places are able to pay, but I will tell you that the nursing home industry is running into the same thing. There are beds being closed at Lutheran Brethren as we speak, or already have been closed, because they can't get staff. It's happening all over. But if someone can come up with a solution, the county, I'm sure Mr. Ringdahl and everyone would like to at least sit down and have the conversation about how do we solve this thing? Because as we age, it's going to get worse. Thank you.
No, thank you, because you kind of, you're jogging my mind here. So in addition to EMS providers, you have your fire departments in your police departments they're looking for help. Fire departments with the volunteerism has gone down. I'm not sure where Pelican's at, but where do you think the numbers, are you looking for staff?
I believe they are.
Yeah, so I don't know, I think you're on the fire department. Yeah. So anyways, that's all over the place, is that you can't find volunteers anymore. And like Wayne said, it's the younger crowd. They're not interested in doing that. And I'm afraid they're not maybe interested in doing EMS work. One idea that I might have is if we were to train EMTs in the high school, hopefully they can become providers in our communities. And if they wanted to go on to become nurses and doctors, it's a great stepping stone. In fact, the other day, a previous EMT of ours came in and she was dropping off some equipment that she had in her closet or whatever. And she says, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to work as an EMT, because without it, I would have had a heck of a time getting into medical school. And with the patient care and the patients that she has cared for, that number helped her get into medical school. And I'm sure that plays a part with nursing school as well. So anyways, we have contacts. If the school district wants to have EMTs in the school, or trained in the school and then become providers later on, the earliest or the youngest we can take on staff is 18 years old. So quite literally, you graduate from high school and you have a job working right here in Pelican Rapids. So that's an opportunity. And hopefully, we can brainstorm and figure out ways we can find volunteers as well.
Wayne, volunteer, is that on the vehicles, or, I don't understand what a volunteer does.
Much like the fire department, they have first responders. It actually usually is in conjunction with the fire department. Actually, doesn't Vergus, some of their guys do first responder work, which is, Tolf knows what first responder is, I don't know what it is, but most of the time it's through the fire department. Ashby, I know, has a big presence. Dalton, former Commissioner Lindquist was 35 years on the Dalton Fire Department and responded to hundreds, if not thousands, of calls, and they did it as a volunteer. They didn't do it as a, I think they got a stipend, much like our fire people get a small stipend or whatever. But that's a good chunk of Otter Tail County is also volunteers, and we're running out of, our volunteers are aging. I mean, I wouldn't be capable of grabbing a body and sliding it like I did when I was 40 years old, or whatever. So I mean, there's some of the challenges also.
So they drive their own vehicle?
No, they run to the fire hall usually and grab a ambulance or a first responder vehicle or whatever. So their ambulance service, Steve, I believe,
They're just basic,
has,
right?
yeah, they're
Ashby?
Vergus.
Oh, Vergus? Yeah, they're fire first responders. So they sometimes respond in their vehicles.
okay.
I mean,
I'm unaware.
Well,
I just know that they're all a lot of volunteers.
Actually, all of the departments in Otter Tail County, the organized rescue squads have vehicles, have a emergency vehicle of some type, whether they're fire-based or standalone. Battle Lake Rescue is a standalone entity, separate from their fire department.
Okay.
So they all have an emergency vehicle or vehicles of some sort. But there again, some of them, a member that might be 2 blocks away from the call might drive their own car there. But yeah, they have either an ambulance or a 4-wheel drive of some sort, or a pickup or whatever it is they might have. And they're paged out throughout the county. So we don't have anybody in the city of Pelican that responds with us as far as a rescue squad. We have the sheriff's department, police department, fire department if we need them. But like Burgess Rescue to the north, Elizabeth Fire and Rescue to the south. So I don't know how many there are in the county, but there's several.
Any other questions from the council?
I don't have a question, but I appreciate you coming here and explaining some of these things. I live right across from you.
yeah.
And
Sorry to keep you up at night.
it's okay.
Might be him.
Lots of ears when you turn the siren on. He really howls at that. That's okay.
Well, that's why we do
But
it.
I was on a volunteer ambulance for a while. Actually, I was on 2 of them, and people don't realize the time commitment it takes to get trained for all of that. As you were talking, I was thinking about, I went through, I don't know, 6 months of training, which was like 2 nights a week, and then we went down to Bismarck to take the test, which was a full day down there, and we had to go down and take a written test somewhere, which I can't remember, it was mine under Bismarck, but that was another half day. I mean, it's a big commitment for these volunteers. The time was just, it's tremendous. So I appreciate what you've done in there.
Well, it's a privilege and an honor to be here and serve this community. We consider Pelican home, Otter Tail County's home. But to kind of add to that, there's some incentives. Pat might know a little bit more about it, but there's incentives for volunteers. There's not a ton of incentives for EMS providers, but the government, federal government, they're quick in paying for people's education, right? It's unfortunate that in that kind of society, nobody's paying for the EMS, the EMT course, or the paramedic course. I'm not saying that I'm in favor of that, but I mean, it's an option, right?
Any other questions from council?
I have a few. So in our contract, is there an ambulance in that garage like so much of the time, or?
No.
I should have looked, but I didn't.
Well, so quite literally, the contract's quite vague. It doesn't specify times or any of that stuff. It's just saying that we're here to provide an ambulance service, and as of right now, we're doing the best we can. But it's, I think personally, the more you put restrictions and add dialogue to a contract like that, it's going to make it a lot more difficult to do the job, especially in this time where we're struggling for help and struggling for finances to cover that help.
Now, when you pick up the more lucrative things, transfers, that hurts us, right? Personally, living in a rural town. I mean,
Not,
response time.
it may, but then again, that person that we're taking to a higher level of care may be your next door neighbor.
Or that person that goes to the higher level of care, potentially open up the spot in Fergus Falls for your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
I get that.
Can I comment on that? So we don't take a truck out of service at either of our stations for the purpose of doing a transfer, right? So we don't pull a truck, like right now, we have 2 ambulances sitting in our garage right now. They're both back from the call, so they're in the garage over there. In town. Okay, yeah. And we always have 2 trucks there unless they're on a call. So if we have nothing going on, there's 2 trucks over here, 24/7 in the garage, unless they're busy. But if we get a transfer from, say, Lake Region, and then we get 2 Pelican calls out, that kind of eats up all the staff we have for today. So those staff are trying to cover all those things. And sometimes we don't have the option of taking or not taking a transfer. So if somebody comes into Lake Region and they're having a heart attack, they need to go to the cath lab. That hospital's in our primary service area that's designated by the state. We have to provide the services to do that transfer in our PSA. If we're busy and can't do it, just like everybody else, then we call mutual aid for whoever we have mutual aid with, Detroit Lakes, Morris.
We've been, yeah, in fact, we've been calling mutual aid for our transfers quite a bit lately, just because we just can't afford to send that crew out and not cover our own area. And to go back a little bit, by what I mean by a full-time ambulance service, we have people in-house here making wage, whether they run a call or not.
So that's one crew?
One crew here. Yeah, one crew here.
Now, a few years back, you sent one crew to California or to race?
Well, we've done a lot of that.
Okay. So is that a more lucrative thing, or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But
that's a big deal.
That's a really big deal. In fact, we have crews and single resource members doing work in Louisiana right now. But we're not utilizing so much of our local staff. We have contract workers for that. People that aren't interested in working day-to-day ambulance work, but they want the higher dollar jobs, like working a 30-day gig in a disaster area.
So do you have equipment though?
Yeah, a lot of our used equipment we keep, and then we utilize it for that disaster response. I think there's a lot to it. You guys are more than welcome to ride with us, come down to the station, hang with. I mean, the coffee's always on. But I'd be more than happy to. I mean, we could write a book on this. I mean, and it's kind of hard to compress in 25 minutes or an hour.
It's easy to complain about stuff.
That's the thing, is that everybody complains about being a little bit late for a call, but we never get phone calls when we're on time. But anyways, I appreciate the opportunity. And if there's anything else, by all means, call me and we'll facilitate a ride along or what have you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 10 is pool plan. Don, you want to speak to this?
Well, basically, yes. We couldn't fit the pool plan in your packet because it was such a large document, but in the packet was a link to the city website that had the pool plan. I'm hoping that the council's had a chance to review it, but part of the process with the swimming pool was that the council had approved an agreement with Design Intent to get the bidding documents all together, get the final plan done. And so that's where we're at right now. And the architect, Scott, who's here this evening, he met with the pool committee last night and went through the document, the pool plan. And I think I'll let Scott basically talk on the plan a little bit. I know, again, we don't have it in the packet. I have it up on the screen. This is the whole document, but to go through it would take quite a bit of time. But for Scott to kind of explain a little bit what's in the plans and specs and explain a little bit about, the process going forward with the advertisements and all that stuff, and then hopefully council will consider approving it to go to the next step.
Okay. Well, welcome, Scott.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Don. I'm assuming you've all looked at the plan set. It's a little overwhelming at times. There's like 57 pages. And I have a set right down here if anybody wants to see hard copy. Also have the specifications. The pool is, we've been working on it since 2012. You're probably all aware of that. The pool itself has a little over 5,000 square feet. I think it's 5,400 and some odd square feet of surface water. Some of it is shallow water, some of it is deep water. We have some pool amenities, the slide, the lazy river, the play feature, the zero entry. We also have a splash pad, and then of course the 3-lane lap pool and a small diving board, a 1-meter diving board. And that pool plan hasn't really changed much since 2012. We have talked about, at one time we eliminated the lazy river, and one time we increased the lap pool to 4 lanes, that sort of thing. When it was all said and done, it all kind of came back to the configuration that you see there on that drawing. And then also the pool house. When you've got the pool, you got to have a pool house for changing rooms, things like that. So there's a men's locker room, there's a female's locker room, and then there's a family changing room, which has private stalls that, say, a mother or a father and a couple of kids can go in and change, and then there are lockers in there, and then they can leave that changing room, go into the locker space, and put their clothes in a locker if they want. They're required to bring their own padlock, I believe, when we've talked about that. So the lockers are open, but they have a spot where you can put a padlock so you can lock your valuables up. There's also, for the campground up on the upper part there is a men's toilet with showers and a women's toilet with showers for the campground. So that's a new facility for your campground. And then in the lower right-hand corner down there, that is the pool pump mechanical room that houses all the pumps. It handles the chlorine and the other chemicals that's required for the what am I trying to say? For the water, for conditioning the water. Thank you, and for circulating. For circulating, because the slide has to have a pretty large pump to pump water up to the top of the slide and water down the slide as kids slide down the slide. We also have a pretty large pool deck around the swimming pool, and the pool can handle 274 swimmers at a time. That's what the code will allow right now. A little bit more than what the original pool has right now. I think your original pool can handle 240 some, 250, something like that, somewhere around there. Yeah. So that's what we've been working on since 2012. We finally got all the drawings complete. Mechanical, electrical, structural, architectural, and then the aquatics engineer. So everything is totally designed and ready to go. Our documents are set that if the council decides that they want to move forward with it, we can put it out for bid. As a matter of fact, I have the document ready to send to the Pelican Rapids Press tomorrow. Should you guys approve it to go forward, it'll go into the paper then. It would be too late this week, but it'd go in next Thursday, and it has to go in 2 times, so it'd be next Thursday and then the following Thursday. And then the state requirement is that after the last publication, we have to have at least 10 days before we can have a bid opening. But also the other thing I didn't talk to you about, Don, is that we have to have a total of 3 weeks too. So if we work all the way backwards, the first day that we could have a bid opening would be Thursday instead of Tuesday, November 11th. I can't do it on the 11th, so we could do it on Friday, November 12th, because I'm in a AIA conference all day on the Thursday, so that doesn't work. So if you decide to move forward, we could have a bid opening here on November 12th for finding out what that pool would cost to build. And I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Questions?
I don't have a question, but I know that part of the process, because, you know, we're trying to get state funding and everything else with the pool. And so the council at one point, and the reason we decided to go forward, get all the plans and specs done, was because the council was really interested in knowing what that bid number is. Because if we've got, you know, the fundraising going on and everything else, you know, how far do we go, how much do we bond for, everything else is kind of dependent on that bid number. So that's why we're here today, is because the council wants to see that bid number. Well, the only way we can do it is to go through this process. So, the one thing that, I don't know if Scott wants to touch a little bit, or if there's a whole lot in the spec, the bid documents that that you want to get into, but I think it'd be worth sharing with the council at least what you shared with the pool committee and with me regarding the 2
sure.
bid forms.
Happy to. The city, I believe, has decided they want to look into getting a bond for building this pool. And if you get state bonding money, that kicks in the Davis-Bacon Act or prevailing wage. And because if we're going out for bid now, we won't know by the bid opening whether or not the city would receive any bonding monies from the state, whether it's a grant or any kind of bonding money from any source that you might be going after, whether it's a deed or anything else. So therefore, in our bidding specifications, we have 2 bid forms, and we're requesting every general contractor, a prime bidder that will be bidding the project, to give us 2 bids. One that would show prevailing wage, and one that would show non-prevailing wage. In other words, if no bonding monies were received, and let's just say the city was able to afford it and they could go out and build it, the prevailing wage would not be a requirement for the project. But because you're going out for bonding money, and should you get it, if that happens, then the state would require that you pay prevailing wage. And that could probably increase the cost of the pool by anywhere from 20 to 30% going after bonding money. So therefore, we're asking every prime bidder to give us 2 bids on the project. Was that me? Sorry.
Well, I think what's interesting about that is when we get them 2 bid forms, to actually see what kind of effect the prevailing wage requirements the state places on projects that are state funded, what kind of an effect it has on them, because, you know, potentially could take our $4 million pool and make it a $5 million pool, just because of the state requirement. But, you know, obviously if we were able to, like you alluded to, pay for this thing by ourselves through fundraising efforts or whatever, and not have to get any money from the state, then it becomes a much cheaper project. But we'll see. We won't know that number until we bid it out.
No, Commissioner Johnson had a question.
Knowing very little about bonding, don't you jeopardize any bonding if you've already bid the project?
My understanding is if you incur any expenses, they don't want to pay for any incurred expenses before the bonding. I do know that other projects have gone out and they've gone for 2 bids for bonding and not for bonding. So whether it keeps you from doing that, but I have spoken with Jordan Rasmussen too, and he has not indicated that that would be an issue. Not that I don't want to guarantee that it is, or I don't want to guarantee that it's not. But
no, I was just curious, because typically when we do when the county does bonding, if you've committed to a project, you typically don't get it. And that's just experience at the county level, and most of our bonding has to deal with highways and those kinds of things. And so that, I just want to throw that word of caution in there, that I don't know the answer, but I know that at the county level on some bonding projects, you actually jeopardize getting bonding money by doing some of that work. Just a word of caution.
You said if you guys are committed to a project. At this point, this city council is not committed to anything.
No, Kurt,
we want to see the numbers to see if we're going to commit.
Sure. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that everybody kind of heard that.
Yeah, thanks.
So
Appreciate that. Yep. Thanks.
I appreciate that. I mean, like Kurt said, you know, we're definitely supportive of this project.
Absolutely supportive.
But the bottom line will come in however the bids come in.
That's right.
Yeah.
How many contractors are there that build pools?
That build the pool itself or the whole project? It'll be a prime bid, so each prime bidder will have their own pool contractor. They may have the same exact pool contractor, and they may request bids from maybe a pool builder in Wisconsin, down in the cities. There's one out in Bismarck. And more than likely, each prime bidder will send out feelers for each of those, and they'll probably get the same bid from everybody. So it could be, just say for instance, let's say it's USA Aquatics down in the cities. They maybe give that number to 15 prime bidders that are bidding the project. So you might end up with USA Aquatics, or it might be the one in Fargo or Bismarck, or there might be one in Wisconsin, because there's some big ones down there too. But they'll all get bids, and you're only going to see one, and it might be the exact same person for every single bid that we receive, if they're the low bidder, because they basically, during the bid process, they will go out and ask their subcontractors for numbers, and those subcontractors, for instance, the pool builder, that person could possibly give his bid or her bid to every single prime bidder that's doing the work, and that's the low bidder for everybody, and that's the one we'll get. So, does that make sense? Yeah.
Scott, I'm still thinking about it. You said 20 to 30%. That's just amazing to me. I mean,
Well, prevailing wage, they have to pay a certain wage rate, which is normally higher. And there's a lot of paperwork for the companies that are required to do prevailing wage reporting, labor reporting requirements and stuff like that they have to do as part of the project also to meet the state.
Yeah, and not only wage, but there's benefits too. So there's additional benefits that have to be added if they don't give them already.
With a project like this, what percent is typically labor and what part is material?
That's a really good question. No, actually, it's, well, before COVID hit, it was getting closer to 60-40, but now I think it might be the other way around. Materials have gone up, supply chains are really being challenged, things like that. And of course, there are fewer and fewer construction workers now than there ever been. So I honestly couldn't tell you exactly what the percentage breakdown would be. So, yeah.
So, do you expect that they would give bids now in this coming months?
Absolutely. I've had contractors calling me and ask me when this is going out for bid. So they're looking for me to call them and invite them to make sure they get a bid on it.
Do they say based on this price of steel, or is that a set number and completed by a certain date?
Yeah. Well, in our specifications, we make them hold their bid for at least 30 days. If you accept the bid, for instance, let's say we bid it out and you accept the bid and you sign a contract with them, they're now on the hook for that price. And basically the contract says you're going to start construction right around April 15th, unless someone tells me something different. Right now, the bid that we have set up is for start of April 15th, right around there, of 2022. But my guess is that you guys are looking to see the numbers, and you may or may not accept it, and then wait to see what happens with the bonding monies, and then go for a second bid. That's my guess. That's what but I don't know for sure.
No,
but,
that's kind of what we
yeah.
talked about, because if we're going to go for we knew we're just basically getting an idea of where the bids are gonna come in, but if we're gonna wait for the state, we're gonna have to go through the rebidding process again.
Yeah.
Which is, there's a cost to that too.
But if the numbers come in favorable, maybe you go with what you got, so.
Well, I just see the supply chain such a mess.
Hmm.
I don't know that you even get quotes on some items right now.
Actually, the nice thing about this project right now is that all the equipment for the pool is made in the USA. Nothing's coming from Asia or anything like that. Yep, the entire building is concrete block and masonry. There's a little bit of steel for lintels and things like that, but really we've designed it with materials that are basically local. We've even specified the masonry from a local company here in Minnesota. There's an or equal clause so they can get it from anywhere they want, but everything is, we were thinking about it, and we're trying not to have any type of materials that are going to be coming from Italy or anything like that, that sort of thing. So it's all pretty well locally sourced, if you will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I do find it interesting and I think helpful for my decision to hear about that it would be a prevailing wage project. I've worked prevailing wage projects. I've never considered a local swimming pool to fall under the category of prevailing wage.
If we pay for it using state funds.
Yeah. See, getting the bond or getting the bid now, we'll see. It might not be worth it for us to do the bonding because it's just going to suck up all the bond money and the prevailing wage. So I was tickled to hear that. Good information. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion from you or what?
Oh, yeah. I'll give it a motion. Put it out for bid.
Okay.
I do that. Yeah. We have to know the numbers.
For a second? Motion second. Discussion? 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 Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yep, thank you.
Item number 11 is 2024 street project, and Don, do you want to introduce that?
Yeah, basically, after the special meeting last week, and yeah, I got a lot of stuff here, but as a result of the meeting last week and trying to come up with some way of answering one of the questions that was asked of me is, by the next council meeting or how soon, at what point we'll be able to have some idea of what the costs are going to be to the city, taxpayers, tax impacts, that type of thing. When am I going to have that number? And so I've been working on that, and I put it on the agenda to share that with you. And so I have some information I'm going to show you, very preliminary. But the other reason that this is put on the agenda is because we have to decide on the tree issue. Are we removing the trees along the school and West Central Church is the ash tree? And from a standpoint of that piece of it, we need to probably, I think we do need to decide as a council tonight or as a city tonight, because they can't really do any more as far as cost estimates and that type of thing, as it relates to especially the trees, and if there's going to be any portion of that that the city would have to cover, if their 2% contingencies for those types of things gets exceeded, that type of thing. So we need to talk about trees. But before we get there, I did put some stuff together, and I'm going to basically share this. And again, I really want to caution everybody. This is a tax impact statement. I got two of them. This one is if we partner with MnDOT. This tax impact statement is very preliminary, and it really is a tax statement based on estimates from 2019. And it's also, this tax statement is if the city finances their cost share using just ad valorem funding structures. In other words, going out for bonds, and it's it's funding that basically we're gonna turn around and we are gonna have every property in Pelican Rapids pay their share. That's what ad valorem tax and management tax is. So on this one, and again, it's very preliminary, and this is also based on non-PFA bonds that they were issued in 2024. And the reason I say non-PFA is because there's two portions of this project. There's an underground PFA qualifying water and utility main portion of it. That would fall under PFA funding, which would be paid back in our utility rate structure, water sewer rates. Most of that, or all of that subsurface stuff would qualify for that. This is stuff that wouldn't qualify for PFA, and the reason this is very preliminary is because we're still trying to figure out, because we still have some digging to do, how much of the surface things that we do would qualify for the non-PFA. So right now I'm using what I know today, and what I know today is pretty much everything is surface. We're figuring non-PFA. I know that's not going to be the final case, but we don't know where we're at yet. So this just reflects, after the meeting the other night, I was talking to Tom Pace, and he said, to have a number and something to start with, well, we're starting to get the final numbers in the cost sharing, use $6 million for the for the surface improvement portion of this. And actually, I think you'd find Tom and I met with Tom and Bob Schleeman yesterday morning to talk a little bit about why I'm trying to get the more detailed stuff that I need to get for our financing, and I'll share that with the council here in a minute. But one of the things that they both pointed out to me is the $6 million and the other number, the $12 million that we don't go with MnDOT, is the numbers I used, but they feel that those numbers are probably low come 2024. But that's the numbers I have today, so I'm using kind of a participation of $6 million, non-participation of $12 million. Expected to probably be higher. We don't know until bids come out. So this is the non-PFA portion of it, and this is just looking at $6 million bonded for 20 years, and what it would do to the taxes in Pelican for again, the residential. You've seen a similar thing for the pool, but the residential, based on your valuation, property tax valuation of your house, and then also for commercial businesses. So, you can see $100,000 house that's right now with our tax capacity is paying $718 a year. It's going to go up by $250, etc. And I'm not going to go through every one of these. So then, if I go to not participating with MnDOT, and I use the same formulas basically, but now I'm going to the $12 million that the city would have to pay if we were to do this project on our own. And you can see what the tax capacities, and yeah, I did hand them, set them in front of you guys. You can see what the tax capacities do going up, doing this project on our own. $100,000 house now pretty much is paying more than 50% of what they would have paid if we do the project and we don't do it with MnDOT. From 712, it adds another 502 to that. So this is kind of the impact. And I know the other night at the meeting, Kevin made a very good point. When this project's done, this is the look of Pelican forever. And he's right. But I know there's a lot of people out there that they're not so concerned about the project and what Pelican's going to look like forever. There are some that are in favor of it or that support the project. And they want to see what the numbers are. Cost is a factor. So this is kind of the start of it. But having said that, one of the things I want to share with you, I talked to our financial consultant about this project too. And every city is limited by the amount of bonding
or debt that they can take on. And that number is 3% of our estimated market value of taxable property. And so, one of the things that I've talked to Bob Schliemann about, and we're still in the works of trying to figure this out. PFA eligibility is easy to come up with when you're talking about water and sewer, everything under the ground stuff. But when it comes to the things you have to disturb at ground level to get to the underground stuff, it's a little bit grayer in some cases. We can pretty much say that, I think, because of the distances between the service laterals going through the downtown area, they're close enough, so PFA is going to, all the surface improvements that we do to get to our service laterals and water and sewer mains, our portion of that in this project would be covered by PFA. But when you get further out from the downtown area and there might be 100 feet between one service lateral to the next, PFA may not cover that. The city would have to cover that. So one of the things that we're still working on is identifying in more detail how much of this cost share we're going to be able to push on to PFA. Because the PFA funding that we would get is not subject to the 3%. So the more PFA we can get on this, that qualifies for this project, the more it qualifies for PFA, the better it is for our bonding. So if you look at us with our bonding capacity at 3%, we already have debt out there. We don't have enough debt cushion to do this project without MnDOT. It's pretty clear when you're looking at a $12 million project and paying back $12 million. I can tell you we don't have the debt capacity. I'm still working on that number and getting that number, but I do know that we cannot do this project by ourselves. In either scenario, with MnDOT, without MnDOT, as we go forward, we're going to identify what can qualify for PFA to try and bring that $6 million cost share of the city, and that's the number I'm using. Hopefully, it might be higher than that. We won't know until bids come on. I'm trying to get that $6 million down to either the 6 or 12. Doesn't matter. I'm trying to get as much of it possibly PFA qualifying as possible, because once we get to a point where we know that we've got enough of it PFA qualifying, the rest of it is just going to basically be what we'll have to bond for it, and we'll be able to stay in that 3%. So there'll be more to come on that. I think one of the things under either scenario, and it's still yet to be looked at until we get the other detail I'm trying to work with Bob and Tom on, whichever scenario we go with, if we go forward with the project, we may not be able to do all of the public pedestrian infrastructure that we want to do. Again, because of our bonding capacity. So there is a possibility that in some areas where we've got gaps in sidewalks or shared use paths, it's possible, depending on that, how low we can get everything, or how high we can get the PFA qualifying stuff. There may be some areas of the pedestrian infrastructure that we cannot do, just because we don't have the bonding capacity to do it. When you think about some of the comments regarding the do not, as far as the options go, two options. One option the other night was to do nothing option, and the other option, there was three options. I think, Steve, you pointed them out. One being a do nothing, and the other two had to do, I think, with going alone or going with MnDOT. And in reality, I think there's only two options. And maybe and this is just my way of thinking about it, but there's only two options, because option number, the one that you're seeing on the screen now, going this alone, is not an option because we don't have the bonding capacity to do it. I can't get enough of the surface improvements tied to PFA to get down where a $12 million project is going to work for us. So for me, there's only two options: do nothing or work with MnDOT on it and try and get that bonding number down.
That's just my viewpoint on it. And the do-nothing option has huge cost to it. It has cost in additional water main breaks, which some seem to think that we can just repair water main breaks a couple of years, it'll cost less than all of this. But the cost of water main breaks, the I&I treatment that we have right now, we send a lot of stormwater down to our treatment plant to get treated because it's leaking into our pipes underneath the highway. There's a cost in that. The cost to the businesses, when we have a water main break. Ask Don Perrin, the cost to him when his basement flooded. You know, we have the potential to cost the businesses in inventory, insurance claims that we don't cover, that type of a loss. And then also the loss, like I mentioned the other day, a $500,000 TAP grant that we'll lose because of it. So there's a huge loss. And I'm not necessarily saying, I just want everybody to understand all of the aspects of this, because it is a huge decision. The other part of this is, that I just wanted to share, is one of the things that we've been doing with the fact that we've been planning this with MnDOT and they're doing their engineering, really, they've been taking care of all the engineering aspects of the highway project right now. We haven't had to do anything other than Bob, thinking about our water sewer main once the streets are all tore up. If the city doesn't part with MnDOT to do this and we decide to go alone, and whenever we decide to do that water and sewer stuff, then our engineers are going to have to take a step back and do a lot of the engineering stuff that's already been done by MnDOT because it'll be our project then. So there will be increased costs in engineering and that type of thing. So I just kind of wanted to share all that because I had been looking at some numbers, get that information out. When it comes to these numbers, though, the one thing I want to point out, this $6 million, what I'm working on is trying to see how much of that $6 million will fall under PFA, and then this number for bonding comes down. If we can get $4 million of our surface improvements that we need to do to get to our pipes, if we can get that qualified as PFA funded, then there's only $2 million that we have to come up and bond for. And we have the capacity to do that. But we don't have the capacity to do $8 million if we don't partner with MnDOT and we end up going alone and trying to get to our pipes. Our pipes will set it. There's no way around that. So just something to take into account. I know that in talking to Bob and Tom yesterday morning about this and just expressing my need to get more of those cost share numbers down so we can kind of finalize these things. In meeting with them, they both thought, well, we'll come down to the meeting just in case council has any more questions or has any questions. And I know Tom's curious just about the tree thing. They want to know because they're kind of held up right now, I believe, and Tom can speak to that, but they're kind of held up on that portion of it because there potentially could be a cost share to the city in removing trees if they're removed and we put new trees in. Maybe not, but they're kind of held up until they hear what the city wants to do with trees. So I'll kind of leave it to the council to ask any questions you might have regarding what I've just shared, and then also consider the trees.
Okay, thank you, Don. And as Don mentioned, we have Tom Pace, District Engineer in Detroit Lakes, and also Bob Schliemann, Apex Engineering, Detroit Lakes, here with us this evening. Do you gentlemen want to address anything before we hold you with any questions?
I guess if I could, Brent, I would. Yes, thank you. Bob Schliemann, Apex Engineering Group. I know there's been a little bit of discussion as far as questions on do we need to replace our infrastructure beneath these state highway corridors. Talking to Brian, the information that I've got is my recommendation is absolutely yes. We don't even know how old that is really. I know we've got records back to the late 50s. Nothing in those corridors is within those records. I've seen some documentation that suggests it's either from the 20s or 30s. If that's the case, it's approaching 100 years old. You get the vitrified clay pipe sanitary sewer and the old cast iron pipe water main. A lot of times, 50, 60, maybe 70 years old is what we get out of that infrastructure, and then we consider the useful life of that infrastructure used up. So from a utility replacement standpoint, my recommendation would be to do it at this time. So even, referencing, I think, the water main break that happened, time flies, was it 3 years ago? 4 years ago? I think it cost the city $120,000 at that point to fix that one single water main break. So just please keep that in mind. That's all I've got this evening. Does anybody have any? Yes, sir.
But Tom said the new underground pipes have to be 10 feet from the original location, right? And I don't get that part.
Well, specifically, I guess, not hearing that conversation, I will say this. There are offset requirements from sanitary sewer to water main. So let's say your sanitary sewer main is in a specific location beneath the street. Your water main has to be at least 10 feet from the sanitary sewer. Your water main also has to be at least 10 feet from your storm sewer. That's Minnesota Department of Health requirements.
You can put the sanitary in the same trench that it's in now.
Well, that's not what I understood.
Yeah, so those are the requirements, yeah. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll put the sanitary sewer right down the middle of the street. A lot of times it'll go right in the same spot that it previously was. And then your water main, a lot of times, 10, 11, or 12 feet off to one side. And then a lot of times your storm sewer will be off to the opposite side, 10, 11, 12, whatever, however many feet we want to separate that by. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Do you have anything else, Tom?
No, I'm just here to answer questions, Darnie.
Council have any questions?
Why did the tree thing come up so suddenly? It has to be decided now?
It would be helpful. I mean, we've been talking about this project, since the last year and a half on designing this. Currently, in early designs, we were going around the trees at the turkey plant. Our shared path is behind the trees. So now that we would like to, we did a field walk here recently with our environmental coordinator, and all trees are recommended. Those trees down because they're ash trees, and that they should be removed with the rest of the project. That's what the recommendation is. So it's up to the city, so we could save them if you want to, or we could take them out with the project.
So we're talking about the trees, the existing trees that are in front of the turkey plant in the grass area.
Yep.
And then in front of the high school in the drop-off lane?
No, from 3rd Avenue to the drop-off lane.
Well, correction, it is all the trees in the whole corridor.
Yes, that whole corridor there. But I highly would recommend getting rid of those. They're all ash trees. We can replace them with a healthier species.
Wait a minute, which trees?
All of them. They're all ash.
From?
The ones in front of the school, there's a maple.
From 5th to?
And from 5th to 3rd, and then in front of the turkey plant.
5th to 3rd. So we're talking?
From one end of the high school to the other.
Yeah, that whole block.
That whole corridor right there. But you have to understand that emerald ash borer is coming this way. And when it does, we are going to have to get rid of our ash trees. Or they're all going to be standing there dead. They've started talking about that quite a bit, and it's just not, and if they're willing to take these trees, we're going to have expense in other trees one day. So I would put a healthier species in here when the project is done.
And we'll have an opportunity to, I think, work with their arborist or whatever to pick a species we'd like to see replacing, to create the shade we'd like to have along the island.
If we were to move forward on this, to remove the trees, what would the motion read?
The city council agrees with the recommendation to remove the ash trees along the school and West Central 30.
Are there no ash trees under concern on 108?
There are, right.
I think,
that motion needs to be.
Well,
for the whole project.
But
I would just go to project.
But some of those are privately owned properties and trees. And I
Well,
think
then-
MinDOT would have a conversation, I don't know, how does that work with the private property owners? You guys talk to them about removing their trees?
We do.
Because they'd be responsible for it.
Right, but anything that's in the public right of way, just include that all in your motion and then
Well, yeah,
simple.
you know, if
Right.
it's in the-
Instead of having
if it's
two
in the
different
public right
motions.
of way.
Yeah, the clarification is every tree on MinDOT right-of-way, it has to be removed in order to fit in the shared use path.
Right.
So every tree along the corridor, the ones that we could save only are the ones up by the turkey plant. Because we have a wider right-of-way up there. Otherwise, everything else on MinDOT right-of-way has to come out to fit in the shared use path.
So you're already doing those.
We are.
The only ones that basically were questionable that could be saved then is West Central Turkey or the school.
The school, no.
For school, no.
No, school,
The
no.
only ones that could be saved possibly are those.
Correct.
West Central turkeys.
Yeah.
How do they feel about it? I don't know.
The pine trees.
Well, it's,
I can't speak for the plan right now, but I don't know what, it's not like one of those things that's been discussed up there.
I guarantee all the truck drivers who go in and out of there won't complain. Because they get, their trailers get beat on a lot by those trees.
Well, they can't see.
Right, right.
I'll move we follow MinDOT's recommendation and remove the trees in front of the turkey plant. And the high school.
And where? MinDOT right away, correct?
MinDOT right away.
Yeah, on the whole project. Correct?
100 trees, right?
Approximately, yeah.
So what,
Okay, do I have a second?
no, what's your motion? Because he added to your motion before you finished.
I didn't add to it, I'm just trying to clarify it.
It's gonna be, remove the trees from the MinDOT right away. By the turkey plant and the high school.
So that's not the whole project.
The whole project is already covered. They're gonna remove them, MinDOT will remove them in their road right away, period. Because of the shared use path to fit in the project. The ones at the turkey plant, if I understand correctly, no problem getting around them because of the wider right of way there. But I think in MinDOT's opinion, keeping an emerald ash or an ash tree is not good business. And they're willing to take them out as part of the project. That's the only ones that they were gonna leave possibly. So I guess the motion just has to involve the turkey plant.
On the high street.
High school's already gonna be done because the road right away isn't as wide there.
Correct.
okay, so Tom's the guy, I mean, he only really needs the motion. If the ones at the high school we're gonna go anyway, because they're in the right of way and you need to get removed for that path, shared use path, then the turkey plant's the only one that's a concern.
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion, is there a second? Sure. Motion second. Discussion? 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 Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank
You
you.
know, that's all we have, or I have right tonight.
Mr. Mayor,
Johnson?
I forgot something during the public hearing and I want to make the council aware, okay? This is just an FYI. So in the process of the county garage being built, if we get it annexed, we will have for sale the current county garage, okay, property. And so in Erhard, so in Vergus, the city of Vergus was very interested and actually ended up owning it. In Erhard, we have a governmental agency that is very interested in owning that, okay? I want to let you know that this sale is coming and that if the city has interest in that lot for any reason, that maybe you need to, I would suggest you put that on an upcoming agenda so that you can have a conversation about that, so that the county doesn't go and advertise this for sale and you're unaware, because we are allowed by state statute to negotiate with other governmental units and not put it up for public auction. So I just, Don probably was aware of that, but okay. Sure. I may not be the answer, but That's a really good question. It was actually in our committee meeting today, and I can get you that number, but I don't want to quote it because I don't remember.
Well, for council to talk about it, I'm sure they're going to know what they're going to pay for it, so.
Yep, and I can get that number, but I just wanted to put that out, and I'll send it to Don, and he can forward that to you.
How large is the lot? Ooh, it's huge.
1.3 acres, I think?
Yeah, I could fit a couple apartment buildings on it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. I'm sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to.
Okay, item number 12 is our
Hey, could we go to 13?
Say again?
Could we go to item 13, because I know we have somebody from
that's
Houston
it.
Engineering that's been on Zoom for a while to kind of be a part of this discussion.
And there's a handout in the packet this evening regarding the discussion that's coming forward.
So Wes, can you hear us, Wes?
Yes, can you hear us?
Yeah, we can. So I'll kind of start the discussion, I guess. Up on the screen, you'll see that I've got a layout, and this is the layout that, well, let me step back. As part of the dam project, we all agree that there needs to be a bridge across the river. And so one of the things that, as we've been working with the DNR on the plan for the dam coming out, one of the things that needs to happen is we have to have plans and specs and biddable documents created to put in the bridge. And so, because Houston Engineering has been such a huge part of the dam removal, and they're doing a lot of the work on engineering for the dam removal, and potentially even if things work out the way we want them to, the abutments for the bridge, before the bridge even goes in, so that will be part of the removal of the dam possibly. But anyway, there's still work to be done on that. Anyway, we need to have these plans and specs done, and so what you see on the screen is a plan that is a result of discussions with the DNR and Houston Engineering. We were down there and met with them last week and kind of finalized some of the details of this. And, kind of what I want to just point out is a couple of things. What we're talking about, if you look at the screen, is just the bridge area right here, as far as the plans and specs goes. This other stuff is just other things that we've been planning and talking to DNR on. For instance, when you come off of you got your existing sidewalk right here. When you come off of the alleyway, because there is an alleyway between on the east edge of the post office parking lot, that is a public alleyway. When you come off that alleyway, we're kind of moving the sidewalk over and then curving it onto the bridge, coming across. But before you even get to the bridge, there's a walkway that's being planned. This is an ADA accessible walkway that would get ADA or handicapped people down to the platform where Pelican Pete will be when Pelican Pete is moved from one side to the other. So they'll have access to it that they don't have now. And then as you go across the bridge, get the other side, the walkway that would extend, our existing walkway extending out to the rest of the park system, and then getting to the steps. They do show kind of an ADA compliant ramp to get down to these gravel areas along the river so people can stand and look at the rapids or whatever the case may be. And this is something that potentially could go in. This isn't anything that the DNR would fund. This would be something that if the city wants to do it, the reason it's shown in the plan at this point, the discussion, is the reason it's shown in the plan because it's something the city might want to consider doing in the future to get people down to this landing area. This one over here, though, because it has to do with moving Pelican Pete as part of the dam project, as I understand it, will be funded by the money to take the dam off. So, but for the sake of tonight, we're just looking and talking about the engineering that needs to be done so we can go out for bids and funding for all that stuff for the bridge itself. And what I provided in front of you guys was a proposal that we had received from Houston Engineering, and the proposal kind of, it does, and I think what I'm gonna do, Wes, is maybe have you speak on the proposal and just kind of share what you guys have kind of laid out in there and why you've laid it out the way you have, if you would do that.
Sure. Thank you, Don, Mr. Mayor, and council members for having us tonight. We, after our meeting on site last week, we kind of moved ahead to kind of format a proposal for your consideration to basically move ahead with, laying out a preliminary bridge design, finalizing bridge geometrics, abutment locations. With that, we would have to lay out the approach, multi-use path, alignments, kind of get all of that set. So as much of that can be incorporated into the existing dam removal and fish passage project, with the intent that, what we're really trying to do is minimize any potential unnecessary repeated work or disturbance to the area once the, dam removal and fish passage project is, started or complete. So I kind of broke down the proposal and kind of tasks for your consideration. Right away, which we're kind of already, into the task one, which would just be kind of preliminary concept level layouts, kind of getting a handle on bridge sizes and, location of trails, everything. And, from there we would go into kind of a preliminary design where we would finalize all those, approach trail and bridge geometrics after, receiving input from the review meeting. And then from where we would go into really finalizing everything, getting all the quantities and everything finalized, getting a final engineer estimate and specifications, and providing one last review from there before submitting the final plan submittal. We also included on there construction admin services, which would include staking, construction observation, just general construction, administering the contract, and finally providing record drawings. So I know with kind of, where everything was at, we really wanted just to break things down so you can, take a look and get a handle on, everything by each task. So really wanted to provide this to you guys tonight to, get some input from you guys, and we're, open to any comments you may have, and I guess I'll leave it open to questions from there.
Council have questions?
Yeah, one of the things that I'll bring up, and Rick, I see you were sitting there. I didn't realize that you were sitting in the room with Wes. So for either one of you guys to kind of elaborate on it too. But I think the way they meant to structure this is so that as we go forward, we're still trying to figure out. I've had conversations with the DNR, with Houston a little bit about this. We're still trying to figure out the funding sources for this, the bridge. Obviously, we've got this project as our second project on the state bonding bill, but again, we won't know until next year if we're going to get that. But the other piece of this that I'm looking at and that we've had some conversation on, we're still trying to investigate it, is to see if the existing funds that the DNR had allocated to the repair, the engineering for the repair of the dam wall, if we could take $500,000, if we could take some of that, because it was allocated towards engineering, if they would allow us to use the money from that to fund this. And now obviously, that would mean if they would allow to do that, then this estimate, basically half of it would be covered by that and the other half would be city. So we still have to get answers to that question before we can actually incur costs.
Does this project qualify for that secondary source of those other dollars that the rest of someone's talking about? Fall under deed or whatever?
It would qualify, but I think you're going to want to take advantage of that for the pool or something else. I mean, because to be honest with you, we want to talk about uses, wherever we get the funds for the bridge, we're going to have to come up with 50% of it. So say we can't use the stuff that was previously allocated to the city for this effort, what I was going to bring up, then if we get that state funding to do the bridge, that's the estimate that Houston gave me that I provided to the state bonding committee was about $480,000. We're going to have to come up with half of that, $240,000. Well, what I'm pitching is it's coming from the liquor store savings account. So we've got kind of that money, but going back to what I was talking about, I want to see so that it can, so ideally it'd be great if, Houston Engineering is designing the removal of the bridge. Part of that process would also be putting the abutments in the dam wall, what's left of the dam wall, kind of doing it all so the abutments for the bridge go in at the time when that's all taken out and part of the same, potentially the same bidding package. So then the abutments would be, and the way we're looking at them is to potentially see if we could use those as a way to shore up what's left after the dam is removed and we've got part of that wall there and we're actually building that rapids area. This would help to hold back the remaining soils and everything else there. So we're using the abutments for two purposes, stability, but then also to set the bridge on. If we can get the DNR to allow us to use our previously allocated funds for that purpose, because it just states in there for engineering of removal, if we can get them to agree with this, and I've got Houston Engineering and the DNR working on some potential language of support that I can talk to the dam safety about. But if we can do that, then we want to get that in place prior to Houston Engineering incurring any cost on this. So, and again, Rick and Wes, correct me if I'm wrong or weigh in on this, but what I'm thinking will happen is council approves this, but we still have some homework to do before we actually start incurring any costs on this until we know for sure where the funding, if we're going to get funding. And I think they kind of laid it out the way they did in their service fee summary that you see in Exhibit A in this. They laid it out this way so that we could do portions of it as funding becomes available. Is that correct, Houston?
Right, yep, exactly. With what you described and funding that, just wanted to kind of break things out and, provide services, as listed, so they could be approved, as funding is secured, so.
And again, it would be really, best case scenario is if we can get the state to allow us to use some of that money, because we're going to lose it. That money goes away at the end of June in 2022. That was the extension we got. So if we can use, and it's $500,000, but I think a little bit of that's been used, but not much. But if we could take, our share of this would, be roughly $80,000. If we could get 80,000 of that 500 before it goes away and get all of this done, so that the abutment is in as part of the dam removal, that saves everybody. So I guess unless the guys from Houston have any other comments, or the council has any questions or comments, I would suggest or recommend the council approve the proposal. And then I'll start working with Houston on when they actually should start doing stuff that would increase cost on it.
Yes. Wes and Rick, how long is the bridge?
Right now, we have it at roughly 100 feet. And that is, subject to change. I guess you can see in task 1 we have this here, a geotechnical investigation analysis. So that would be slightly dependent on recommended slopes underneath the bridge, and final layout of the approach trail and everything. But what you're seeing on the screen there, that is a 100-foot long span bridge.
And is that suitable for bicycles?
Yes. Right now we have it at a clear width of 10 feet on the deck. That would be suitable for pedestrians, bicycles, and it would be load rated for a small service vehicle, just, obviously single lane, but lawn mowers, things like that to cross as well. So.
Thank you.
And what we had talked about is in the design of the bridge would be similar to the bridges that we already have behind the hardware store, so all the pedestrian bridges, other than the rotary suspension bridge, would all kind of match in character and look. This one would have a concrete floor also, just like the one behind the hardware store. So.
Anyone willing to make a motion to approve the scope of services with Houston Engineering for the pedestrian bridge? So moved. Third, second.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion? 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 Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Well, thank you, Wes and Rick, for being with us this evening.
Thanks for having us. Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch, Don.
Yep, thank you.
Item number 12 is Otter Tail Lakes Country Community Collaborative Membership. There was a handout in our packet this evening, and it tells about different magazines that they have located throughout the state, in fact, and website, Facebook posts and videos. This is more or less just put in here for FYI. Does anybody have any questions?
So basically what they're looking at is, the last several years, we've been a part of the Otter Tail Lakes Country Community Collaborative membership, and we've always, the city has always, and we did budget again for it in 2022, but we always budget at that clam digger, they call it, level at $3,000, and then that gets us some space in that magazine that comes out every year, and then they also go around and they sell advertising to the businesses. That $3,000 also, it gets us a 2-page spread, and they always check with me, but we're trying to find stories about Pelican Rapids, because that's specifically for the city or something in the city. I know in the past there's been stories in there about I think historic City Hall. I think the last issue of it, one of the stories was regarding Riverview Place. I think that building, the history on that building. So it's that kind of stuff. So again, since we've been members for quite a while, there is, some of the stuff they shared is the exposure of Pelican Rapids because we do this.
Right.
So, in their social media feeds and stuff, so I recommend we do it again.
You're looking for a motion here?
Yes.
So, okay.
I'm sorry.
Motion, second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All the same, motion carried. Item number 14, administrator report, Don.
Yep, since the last meeting, obviously I spent a lot of time working on getting your agenda set and got ready for this meeting with Danielle. I completed the work, excuse me, on the MPCA chloride response and submitted that letter to the MPCA. And what I shared a bunch of information on things that we've done in the city regarding reducing chlorides in our effluent from the wastewater plant. We haven't done a whole lot. That's the unfortunate thing, but we have done a few little things. But the biggest thing is we requested that the MPCA get a hold of us to come down and sit down with us and possibly even have the guys from West Central Turkey sit down and talk a little bit about the chlorides. They want to put chloride limits in our permit when they issue our permit for the wastewater plant. And to totally remove chlorides from our effluent from the wastewater plant would cost millions and millions of dollars. So they're coming up with variances that cities can apply for and stuff, which doesn't relieve you from the responsibility of somehow or someday working towards that reduction at the mechanical plant level. It gives us a kind of a variance for a while. So you'll hear more about this stuff in the future as we hear back from the MPCA. Like I had mentioned during the dam bridge discussion, I had attended that meeting down there at the bridge, but also prior to that, we had a virtual meeting with the DNR and the city kind of before we decided to meet down, person to person down there. I attended, as you all know, the October 1st City Library Board meeting with the Bureau of Mediation Services. And I'll just real quickly just comment that we got a letter from Bureau of Mediation Services and pretty much it didn't say anything. Other than the fact that, yeah, they agree with us and the library board that they are city employees. But as far as wages, how they can change cost of living adjustments, that type of thing, they said that's not their jurisdiction, you should contact the League of Minnesota Cities. So we're back to square one. I will contact the League of Minnesota Cities, reach out to them and see what they have to say about this. I spent some time, a while ago, I think I had shared with the council that we had talked with an individual that was interested in potentially looking into, as a revenue stream for the wastewater plant, looking into having leach aid deliveries to our plant to be treated here. Leach aid usually comes from landfills. Every landfill has it. They got to do something with it. They just can't let it seep into the ground, so the landfills collect it, and it's treatable by taking them to wastewater plants. Right now, the Becker County one, the one in Clay County, in Holly or Perm, wherever, they haul these things to different treatment facilities, wastewater plants. Well, our wastewater plant has the capacity and has the ability to take this stuff. And so we've been looking into what kind of revenue stream could it create for our wastewater plant, which we could really use. And so I spent some time this week having a little bit more discussion with the gentleman that brought this to our attention and is interested in doing this. And so I spent some time with him. The council will be hearing more about this as we get a little bit more information, because at some point I think it'll come before the council to approve doing this, and then we'll have Henry, we'll hear the whole story and what kind of revenue stream we're looking at and that type of thing. I continue to work on personnel issues, and we've got several of them from many different angles, it seems like, more than ever, the COVID effect, I guess. But we're still looking for part-time at the liquor store. We have until Friday of end of this week, collecting applications for our utility clerk position to try and fill that. The street department still is an individual that's been out. Still dealing with the issue that you guys heard in the closed meeting the other day, so lots of things personnel-wise. We finally finished up the county road project over there, our utility and street extension, so I completed and submitted the closing documents to Minnesota Housing Finance Agency and requested our last payment. So that $700 and some odd thousand dollars that we got as a grant to put that in. Our last payment for that will be coming, so we've gotten all the money that we requested to do the project. The only thing that they wouldn't reimburse, which you all know this, is that additional 65 grand that had to be spent to de-water that area that couldn't be foreseen. And so they wouldn't reimburse us for that, so we did have to cover that portion of it. I met with Bob Schliemann. We have, with that project finishing, and also with the CASA project, with the county finishing down around the school and stuff, we're going to be having public hearings for assessments on those. And they'll be at the next council meeting. So I've been meeting with him, going over those particular documents and what we need to do at those meetings. Again, meeting the DNR down at the dam. I've been at the October 7th special meeting with the city council on MnDOT. I held that conference, or that call with our financial advisor, as I mentioned to council when I was talking about the funding for the road project. I attended last night's, the October 11th swimming pool committee meeting and kind of went over the plans with them and with Scott, shared a little bit about the funding, wanted them just to be aware about the prevailing wage and the fact that we're going to look for two numbers. And you can see the concern and the discouragement on their face, knowing that we've been hoping for a $4 million project, only to find out that if we get state funding, it may increase it by as much as maybe $1 million. So they understand, but they want this thing to get done, like we all do. And then I also had a conference or a call today with Sourcewell regarding the comp plan. That he's been working with the steering committee on, and they're getting close, but they need to get together one more time. Hopefully this will be the last time before they wrap this thing up. Like most things where you have volunteers, it starts out strong and withers away, and he did stress some concern that getting participation hasn't been real good. We got a set 2 or 3 or 4 people that do show up, but the rest of that advisory committee seems to kind of went by the wayside. And so he really needs to encourage them to come to one more meeting, and hopefully that one will be the last one. Maybe that'll be the incentive to get them to come. So they are close and hope to have the comp plan steering committee's stuff before the planning commission and the council at some point soon. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Don?
No, thanks.
Thank you. Item number 15 is mayor's report. A few items. Conducted conversations with the mayor's session at Historic City Hall on September 29th, and I wrote a letter of support for the mural grant application, which Kate Martinez was with us at our last council meeting, and submitted it to the park committee. I attended a mediation meeting here at City Hall with Councilman Ballard, city staff, and library board members, librarian, Annie Rink, Viking library director, and then the mediator from the Bureau of Mediation Services on October 1st. Attended a river restoration dam removal project meeting at the Pelican Rapids Dam on October 7th with Administrator Solville, Superintendent Olson, and personnel from the DNR and Houston Engineering. Attended a special council meeting here last Thursday with you gentlemen, and then attended and then I met with this afternoon with Administrator Solga to review the agenda for this afternoon's council meeting. Any questions? Seeing no other business on the agenda, is there a motion? Motion second? Motion second. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All the same. Meeting adjourned.
Recording.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks a lot, Kurt.
I think that's what happened.